We are now 1 week away from the opening of training camp. What questions do the Magic have to answer as the preseason begins? It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 23rd. It will be September 24th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the questions the Orlando Magic have to answer in training camp. We start focusing in on the issues that Magic face as camp begins. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is sponsored by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We're going to be hitting a lot of these storylines over the next 3 weeks. We have 4 weeks until the beginning of the season, October 23rd, in Miami, the brand new Kaseya Center with the new scoreboard and all that. We're going to miss the Chihuly. But we're going to talk about a lot of these issues. So let this set the table for what we're going to learn as the Magic open training camp. Let this pod, this 1 week to go until camp begins, kind of set some of the storylines we're watching. We'll talk about the rookies. We'll talk about the rotation. But obviously, I think the biggest question that the Orlando Magic face as training camp begins is probably the most essential question for the team. How is this team going to move the ball? How is this team going to create pressure? How is this team going to create plays for each other? Now, I don't think the Magic are a selfish team by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a low-pass team. Their offense is set up through pick and rolls, through dribble handoffs especially, and through Paolo Banchero isolations. And so the ball does tend to stick. And that's a bad thing, and not necessarily a terrible thing, because again, you want the ball in Paolo Banchero's hands. But at the end of the day, I know I've pointed this out several times. At the end of the day, one of the big reasons the Orlando Magic lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the playoffs, and that's ultimately where we want to win, is the playoffs, was because in Game 7, Franz couldn't hit a shot, Jalen couldn't hit a shot, and Paolo had to create everything by himself. And by the time we got to that second half and that fourth quarter, Paolo was banging his head against a wall. And it's not that Paolo couldn't carry the Magic pretty far. I mean, the Magic were leading midway through the third quarter. They got 2.5 quarters through that game with just Paolo. It's not that Paolo's not good enough to carry this team. It's that the Magic need to find ways to lessen his burden. And so I know my takeaway was the Magic needed to find someone who could get Paolo easy shots. That may not have necessarily been a point guard or like a true point guard. And even Paolo, when he talked to the Washington Post shortly after the series ended, said that he felt the team needed a table setter, just a secondary creator. Well, the Magic, it turned out, got rid of their two best playmakers, Markelle Fultz and Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles now with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Markelle Fultz now looking for a team still. Memphis may be an option now that Derrick Rose is leaving that team. This is an issue, but it's not, because the Magic still won a lot of games last year without this. Because, as much as we want to talk about things, the Magic still started Jalen Suggs at point guard last year. So it's not like the Magic are trying anything new. At the same time, and I think this is the fear that a lot of observers have of the Magic aren't breaking to the next level. without an increase in playmaking, without getting someone that can get Paolo an easy shot. And the reason why I say it's so important to get Paolo an easy shot, and why it is such an important thing, is the biggest key for the Orlando Magic to improve their offense is to reduce turnovers. The Magic were 28th or 29th in the league in turnover rate last year at 15%. Reduce those turnovers, you get more shot opportunities. Even if you're still not shooting the ball that much better, let's say you get 5 more shot opportunities and you make 2 more shots. Those 4 points, those 5 points more per game could be the difference between the 23rd best offense in the league and the 18th, 19th, 17th, 15th, like being average. Do that, make some free throws. The way you get Paolo Banchero to 25 to 30 points per game, which is probably where he needs to be, is reduce his turnovers, number one, make more free throws, and get him a shot in the dunker spot. So let's say you get him 2 shots in the dunker spot, you get him a spot up 3, you create some easy shots for him, and he doesn't have to drastically change his shot diet to be more effective and efficient, to throw out all those criticisms. We'll talk more Paolo probably tomorrow, but you could throw out a lot of things if you do this right. But, and this is the struggle here, the Magic did not address that issue. Instead, they doubled down with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, which not a bad move. I think it's going to work out. I think it's going to be fine. But obviously, the Magic have to supplement this somehow. And it starts with, can Jalen Suggs be that guy? Can Jalen Suggs take some of that responsibility? Can Anthony Black off the bench take some of that responsibility? I think honestly, as much as we want to talk about the playmaking issue with the starting group, I think the playmaking with the backup group without Fultz and Ingles is a far bigger concern. It's for fewer minutes, but it's so much more uncertain. And that group was so vital to the Magic winning a lot of games last year. Again, the Magic were 4th in the league in bench scoring last year. Their bench lineups were far better than their starting groups. They dominated those bench minutes. And that didn't help them in the playoffs as much because you tend to shorten your rotations, and the Magic really took them a while to do that. Then again, that bench group won them game 4 and had that big run in game 4 that put that game away. Essentially, so much of what the Magic have to do next, their next phase of this rebuild, is figuring out ways to make Paolo's life easier, to make Franz's life easier, to make their lives easier. And adding more shooting is a big piece of that. And obviously, I think they did that with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You hope Suggs can continue to shoot better. They have Jet Howard. They have Tristan da Silva, who are rookies. In all fairness, Howard's not a true rookie, but he's a rookie in experience. You have rookies to kind of fill that in too. But the Magic have to answer this playmaking. Again, if the goal is to be a home court advantage team, to be a championship level team this year, it starts with this group playing at a higher level. And you just have to wonder if there is a ceiling to what this team is capable of doing within this offense, within this group, with everything as it is, if there is a ceiling without a point guard. And honestly, that's what we're trying to figure out this year. If anything, the goal is, okay, let's see if Paolo can handle that responsibility, or if you can run that responsibility by committee. If we can have that responsibility shared throughout the entire roster. That might be a fair thing to try and figure out, to spend the year figuring out. If the team is going to be just as good as it was last year anyway, A, let's do it again. Let's prove that we can do it again. But B, let's figure out the limits of this project and then really dive into what we need. On top of that, there wasn't great point guard options on the market this summer anyway. You can argue Tyus Jones, but Tyus Jones isn't a defender. You'd sacrifice a lot of defense for him, and the Magic clearly weren't willing to do that. I think there was very real interest in Malik Monk, but he didn't hit the market. Anthony Simons doesn't defend. The Magic were not going to sacrifice their defense for a little bit of playmaking. That's not the stage that they're at yet. Maybe this is how they get to that stage where these ideas, these options start to open up. But the Magic have to figure out how to create plays for each other and how to ease that burden and ease that tension and ease that pressure on Paolo Banchero. That's how this team takes that all-important next step. And figuring out what they're capable of doing and how they can operate is question number one for training camp. There's plenty more to talk about. We'll talk about how the Magic distribute roles and what roles the Magic's rookies will play. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. NBA season is right around the corner. Before you know it, it is actually 2 weeks from Friday. The Orlando Magic will be back in the Kia Center prepping for a preseason game. Preseason is going to come really, really fast. We're actually a week from Monday is that beautiful afternoon matinee against New Orleans Pelicans to open up the preseason. It's going to be fun. We're gonna have fun with that one. So if you want to get your tickets to Magic preseason games or to opening night against Brooklyn Nets, I believe it's against Brooklyn Nets. I don't have the schedule memorized yet. If you want to get tickets to opening night, Gametime is the place to go. Gametime even has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events, it doesn't have to be sports, even easier. Gametime Picks will filter out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I've used Gametime in the past to get a sense of the market for events that I want to go to games and events around Central Florida. And I love the experience with Gametime. I even had a problem with one of my tickets one time with the MLB app. I went to a Rays game. Gametime helped me out, made sure I had the tickets on my phone. No stress at all. They really took care of me, and they will take care of you too. Gametime has all-in pricing. If you toggle this feature, it shows the total upfront price with no surprise fees at checkout. You know what that final price is going to be. They give you the great digital seat view so you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And with their lowest price guarantee, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a cheaper ticket somewhere else. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When we get to training camp, I think one of the big questions everyone always has is, what do you do with the new toy? With the shiny new toy? Everyone loves playing with the shiny new toy. And obviously, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is going to start. We know what his role is going to be on this team. But the Magic add so few new players. We're all curious how the Magic are going to use their young players. And it's not that young players can't contribute to winning teams, but when you're on a winning team, young players face a different kind of pressure. And it's obviously a different pressure than what we've seen from Magic teams over the last decade plus, when the Magic were not pretty good or not relevant at all. This is going to be one of, I think, the most interesting challenges for the Orlando Magic this year. I think it's one of the great mysteries, and one of the reasons why the Magic may take a slight step back this year. I'm trying to halt the hype train a little bit, but the Magic are relying on a lot of young players, and how the Magic integrate these young players and the role they take on is not only important to telling us what the future of this team is going to be, which is still very, very important, but also how successful the season can be. At its very base level, the Orlando Magic are going to be relying on Anthony Black to be the backup point guard. And the Magic are entering the season relying on a second-year player that they went very far out of their way to not use as a point guard. And so extending the conversation we had in the first segment of the show, the point guard spot is very, very much up in the air. We don't know what to expect from Anthony Black as a lead guard, as a main playmaker. That's not something he was asked to do last year. And results in Summer League were encouraging, but not, oh my God, I'm all in on this. Now, Anthony Black has spent so much time in Orlando this summer. He has been in the gym at the Advent Health Training Center. No one's going to question this kid's work ethic. Like we know he's going to defend at the level the Magic want. That's going to get him on the floor, period. The question is, how much can he add offensively? And that is such a critical question for the Orlando Magic this year. Because again, so much is riding on Anthony Black. So much is riding on his development. It's not that he's the sixth pick. I can't tell you how many times I had people say, "He's the sixth pick of the draft, you should be playing." That's not how the league works anymore. You play if you're ready to play. And at the end of the day, you're trying to win. And Anthony Black does help the team win. I think there was a case to be made to play Anthony Black a little bit more and to at least give him opportunities, give him some trial balloons to see where he's at. I think the Magic, he got put in a really difficult spot in February, March when the Magic played the Knicks and the Pacers. And the Magic lost a lot of trust in him and just said, this kid's not ready. His eyes are a little too bright. We gotta stick with what we know. Black's going to get that opportunity this year. He's going to be very, very big. But the question then becomes, well, okay, the Magic drafted Jet Howard with the 11th pick, and I don't think that's necessarily a quote-unquote bad pick, but now you got to find a way to use him. And that's going to be tough because he's going to be in a camp battle. He's going to be in a position battle with Gary Harris, a veteran that the Magic know very well, that has skills that the Magic very much need, that they trust. He's going to be battling him for minutes. And again, I think this Magic team is a development outfit. I think they're trying to still plan for the future while they win today, but they're trying to win today. And they're going to play the players that give them the best opportunity to win night in and night out. Having said that, we know Gary Harris is going to face injuries. We know injuries are going to hit this team hard. And they do every year. You just have to be prepared for it. And I think there is faith that Jet Howard can play well in a 2-week period and maybe make his way into the rotation when that opportunity comes. But look, Jet's fighting not only Gary Harris, he's fighting Cole Anthony, he's fighting Tristan da Silva, he's fighting Caleb Houston. There are a lot of players demanding minutes on this team. There are a lot of players who the Magic should feel very comfortable playing for spot minutes when they need them to, when injuries do hit. They're going to have a lot of tough decisions to make, and training camp's going to start separating these players out. Like Caleb Houston is a great example of a young player who has gotten better year over year in his first 2 years, has done some very good things, defends pretty well, has the coaching staff's trust, but now has to start producing to establish himself. Because look, Jet Howard's got the rookie contract. He's got the first round contract. Tristan da Silva's got the first round contract. Caleb Houston's got a team option for next year. And someone's going to have to get pushed off this roster to add players that the Magic need to take their next step. Again, Caleb Houston has a skill the Magic need in his shooting. He shot 37.5% from three last year. Spotty volume because of his minute distribution, but he's not afraid to shoot it. Tristan da Silva is going to be in the same boat. He's going to be playing probably when Jonathan Isaac has to miss games. He's going to essentially fill in Joe Ingles' minutes, I think. He's going to play when Jonathan Isaac misses games. And look, Jonathan Isaac isn't going to play 82 games. Like, I hope he can clear 60. He was 55 last year. I hope he can clear 65, 70. I hope like any games he misses are just random one-game instances, or he's feeling tired or sore and they're being careful. I don't think the Magic are going to be injury managing Jonathan Isaac as much, but we're going to assume Jonathan Isaac's going to miss 15 games or so. Tristan da Silva is going to step into those minutes. I am very confident of that. And Tristan da Silva is an older rookie, so I think he can step in a little bit quicker. He looked really comfortable at the NBA three-point line in Summer League. The way he got his shots at Summer League, they weren't post-ups, they weren't ISOs, they were shots within the flow of the offense. It was him moving into a space, being available and ready to shoot when the ball swung to him, those are the kind of shots he's going to get. And, they always, the Magic always talked about his basketball IQ, and that was what everybody said, that he was the smartest player on the floor. You saw at Summer League that he just knows where to be an outlet for whoever needs him. And, we talk about, okay, how do the Magic get more playmaking? Well, if Paolo Banchero is driving to the paint and Tristan da Silva is moving into the open corner within Paolo's field of vision, and he knows how to do that, Paolo's going to trust him, make that pass, hopefully be on target, and da Silva's going to be capable of making that shot. I really do think it's going to be hard to keep Tristan da Silva off the floor. Like, once he gets that opportunity, and it may not be right off the bat, but once Tristan da Silva gets an opportunity in the NBA, he's the kind of player that it's going to be really hard to keep him off the floor. But he's got to earn his way onto the floor. And so as we get ready for training camp, as we get ready for the start of practice, this is one of the battles that we're going to be seeing, is all of these young players are clamoring for attention, and someone's going to rise to the top. Someone's going to gain that trust. Someone's going to get that opportunity. The question is who, and the question is, how do the Magic fill in around that? And then the question is, okay, you didn't get your opportunity. You lost that training camp battle. Well, that opportunity is going to come around at some point again. What do you do when that happens? Are you ready to go when that injury hits and you're needed? I like the Magic's depth and potential, but it's very young. These are very, very young players, and there's a lot of questions, I think, that the Magic are going to have to answer as they continue to develop this team. Of course, we know what the Magic are going to do defensively, but the big question, one we've hinted at throughout this whole episode, is how do the Magic fix their offense? We'll talk a little bit about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Plus, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. FanDuel has great odds on everything from the NBA with the Orlando Magic over-under at 47.5 wins. They are favored to win the Southeast Division at -140 still. And yes, they have opening night. We are a month away from opening night. The Orlando Magic are 1-point underdogs. They're taking a point at the Miami Heat 1 month from today, October 23rd, at the Kaseya Center. So we'll get excited for that. If your game is more about college football, big thing here in Central Florida, you can get great odds on UCF too. Currently 14.5-point favorites over Tristan da Silva and Jamal Mosley's Colorado Buffaloes. That over under a 63.5 sure looks spicy. Plus, your conference winners, UCF is currently running second in the Big 12 at +500. Jump on that UCF bandwagon now, especially with Utah at +180, that Black Friday game. If you want to skip the Magic game that night, it's looking very, very spicy over at the Bounce House. FanDuel has all these great offers and so much more. Again, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's all available at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Ultimately, we all know the thing that is holding the Orlando Magic back. Like, everything we're talking about is dancing around one major issue. The Orlando Magic have to be a better offensive team. They were the worst offensive team that made the playoffs last year, 23rd in the league in offensive rating. Even though they made more three-pointers after, or shot a higher percentage of three-pointers after January 1st last year, no discernible difference with their offensive rating. There are a lot of things this team has to do. And frankly, we're going to dive a little deeper into some Paolo Banchero efficiency numbers on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But it starts with that. That criticism is, in fact, where everything starts. I mentioned the turnover thing. That's a big thing on my plate. If the Orlando Magic want to be a better offensive team and want to score more points, they can't keep giving possessions away. Reducing turnovers is, to me, priority number one. And my concern is not having a true point guard, relying on this point guard by committee thing with Jalen Suggs and Paolo and Franz all really kind of driving the ship. They're not going to reduce the turnovers by enough. You expect those guys to get better. They are a year older, a year wiser. They understand, they have a little bit better sense of how they need to distribute the ball. It's fine. Like they'll be better. I am confident about that. But this is something the Magic have to do. They have to reduce their turnovers if they're going to be successful, if they're going to take that next step as a team. That's so much easier said than done, obviously. That is so much this what they have to do to grow. A lot of Magic fans will point to the three-point shooting. And again, turnovers, I think, have a lot to do with all of this. It's just about not leaving points on the board. You turn the ball over, that is an opportunity missed to score points. That is a possession given away. You miss free throws. Those are points given away. Those are points left on the board. And again, I think it's really important to note, remember this, we're talking now about the smallest of margins. A turnover is one more opportunity that they get to score that you don't. A missed free throw is a point, 2 points, 3 points that you don't get back. And again, think of it this way. If Paolo Banchero is going to get from 22 points per game to, let's say, 28 points per game, he needs to increase his scoring by 6 points per game. Well, he turns the ball over 3.5 times per game. Reduce that by 1.5 turnovers. Just reduce it by 2 turnovers. It's 2 more possessions to get shot opportunities. And if he's shooting 40%, that's 1.5 more field goals. That's 3, let's say 3 more points right there. He's shooting 70% from the foul line. He gets to the line 7 times. He's making 4 or 5 of 7. He makes that 6 of 7 or 7 of 7. That's 1 or 2 more points right there. Now he's at 26, 27 points per game. It's raw numbers. It's not everything, but it doesn't take very much to get from the level the Magic are at to the level that they need to be at and the production they need to be at. And again, it's going to answer all these questions about efficiency that the Magic have. I think there is a concern. The other concern I have, the bigger concern I have for the Magic from the three-point shooting standpoint ties into all this. It's the volume. The Magic took the second fewest threes in the league last year. And that's fine for the team that they are because they weren't a good three-point shooting team. 23rd in the league in three-point shooting, 26th, 27th in the league in three-point shooting. They weren't a good three-point shooting team. They shouldn't be taking a lot of threes. But the math doesn't matter. Think of it, it's election season. We're going to talk about pathways to win. We're going to talk about the path to victory. From a raw perspective, just throwing out the pace neutral stuff, it is harder to, the teams that take a lot of threes miss a lot, but still make more. Washington. That doesn't necessarily mean your offense is more efficient, but you're going to score more points. And at the end of the day, you're just, with the defense the Magic have especially, we talk about the turnovers. The Magic's defense got all those turnovers back. The defense, I think, had a forced to 15.3 turnover rate. The turnovers eventually became a wash. That's how good the Magic's defense is. And so if the Magic reduce their own turnovers, think of all the extra shot opportunities the Magic are getting. It's not even just that they turn the ball over less. They're preventing the other team from getting fast breaks, which Magic are very good at defending. But now you're getting these extra shot opportunities, and those are extra opportunities to be more efficient, to have more possessions, to score more points. It's not going to take much for the Magic to get where they need to be. And three-point volume is a part of it. It is really hard to be a good offense being a low-volume, poor-shooting three-point shooting team. And the Magic shot 31, 32 per game. I've always contended 35 is probably the number they need to be at. 35 or 36 attempts per game. So we're not even talking about 10 more attempts. We're talking about 5 or 6 more attempts. I think the hope with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is that he will be able to maintain or increase his volume up to like 5 or 6 3-pointers a game. I think he was averaging 4 or 5 last year. Jalen Suggs is probably a player they want to get up a little bit too. I would hope that Paolo Banchero is a more confident 3-point shooter, that the Magic can get him some more spot-up looks. But I think Paolo will probably have the freedom to take some pull-up threes on occasion. He's not Tracy McGrady or anything on pull-up threes, but he's going to take more threes this year too. And even if the Magic still shoot a poor percentage or not like top half of the league percentage, I do think that's going to help because it'll stretch the floor a little bit. There'll be at least be a threat to shoot. Like, again, that to me, that was the bigger thing. I know I've said this a million times on this pod. The threat of your shooting is actually more important than your ability to make 3-pointers in a lot of ways, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the defense. You're trying to make defense pay for collapsing the paint, number one. But number two, you're trying to get the defense to not leave those shooters open. You got to make them pay when they do, obviously. But from a base standpoint, you're trying to make them so afraid to leave shooters that they're a step late and you can get to the basket, because the Magic's offense is still about putting as much pressure on the rim as possible and putting pressure on the paint. And they have the players to do that, obviously, in Paolo and Franz. Those are the two key players. That is what they are experts at. And that's why you still keep a Wendell Carter around to clear the paint out, to be someone who can spread the floor as a center so that you can kick back out to him, or the center is hugging him because they don't want him shooting the ball, and you can get to the basket without the rim protector bothering you, or the rim protector being a step late. That's the big question for the Magic ahead of training camp. That's the big thing they have to figure out, the big thing they have to do to be ready for the season. And all this stuff is going to be developed. Again, I think we'll get to like big messages about the season next week. This season is still a developmental season. This season is still about trying to figure out how this team will continue to evolve and where this team and this group specifically, where their ceiling is and what needs to be filled in. Again, I think a lot of us can sense what that is. But the Magic are going to try and see what they can do with this group as it's constructed. And obviously, they face a lot of questions to get to the level that we all know they need to be at. And it's going to be a fun ride. Like, it's going to be a fun ride, and I think we're all excited to get this thing going. 1 week to go until training camp begins. But that's going to do it for me. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them style podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. I still have my survey for potential subscribers, for interested subscribers, as well as subscribers in full, just to kind of get a sense of how I was doing for the first year on the Patreon page, and to see what you guys want me to do with the Patreon page. So please scroll down and find it. I can provide a link as well if you'd like access to that, as I'm developing my subscription service as well. So we'll get to all that. Again, thank you all for your support, but I want to make sure I note that as well. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On NBA podcast, where the local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some Paolo Banchero efficiency numbers. I think there is something to say there. We'll talk about the effect of shooting, as well as where Paolo stands as he gets ready for his third season. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.